Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this informative session today. We had promised you that we would hold such sessions as situations warranted. You will recall we had the last such session dealt exclusively with the insurance. And today we recognize that we need to update you on the FTC BLPC rate hearing. But before we get into that, I want you to observe what's on the screen. We have partnered with one of our partners in Colombia, the SCV Hospital in Colombia. They're going to be here attending an orthopedic conference, which starts October 1st and runs until the 3rd. On October 3rd, they are prepared to give second opinions to 10 persons. And so far, we have 5 more spaces. What you do is you need to register early and you walk with your images. They will not be conducting physical examinations. They will be looking at your images, and based on what is there, they'll give you a second opinion free of cost. And we are aware, BARP, we are aware that quite a few of our members are suffering from hip problems, joint problems, you know. So this is a good opportunity for you to come, bring your images. And if you don't require a second opinion, but you want to be there, they will also offer a presentation on the impact of falls part 2, because we do recognize that quite a few of our seniors are falling. So let us please see if you are not in the market for this offer. Maybe you might know somebody who wants to get that second opinion. Please, let's get that done, because they're here until the 3rd. They're here until the 3rd. I'm getting messages from persons saying they can't unmute, but when we come to the question and answer session, we will unmute everyone. But the challenge we were faced with earlier is that quite a few people had background noises, and that it was being sort of disruptive to the meeting. So I'll now turn the program over to our host for this evening, our PR consultant at BARP, Bell Holder. Bell, over to you. Yeah.
I'll unmute. Good evening, everybody. I'm Bell Holder. Thank you so much. I take this opportunity to say thank you so much to Madam President Marilyn Rice-Boyne, President of BARP. Good evening and welcome to Vice President Dame Billy Miller, all members of the board, all directors of the BARP Charitable Trust, management and staff of BARP, BARP members. Thank you all so much for being here. Especially invited guests. To Trevor Brown, I want to say thank you so much for being here. I know that Mr. Brown, who is an engineer and chairman of the Coalition of Cooperatives and Concerned Citizens, would have been up front and center today at the FTC rate hearings. However, he's taken the time to join us this evening. So we're really happy that you can be with us, Mr. Brown. Any members of the media who are with us this evening, thank you so much for being here. And again, especially to you, BARP members, we really appreciate you joining us. And I think this evening is particularly important. And as a matter of fact, BARP's role as an advocate is clearer now than ever before, based on its active role as an intervener. And in the proposed Barbados Light and Power rate hikes, we can all certainly benefit from a greater understanding of the wide impact that an increase will have at this time, and is farther reaching than just a liner note on your electricity bill. I think initially a lot of us had that misconception that it would just be a little few extra dollars on our electricity bills, but truthfully, it goes a lot deeper than that, because of course, what happens is business. So when your supermarket, your hairdresser, all of the people that you deal with in terms of business and consumers, and if you're a consumer, whatever goods and service you're doing, if they are having extra costs, they're going to pass that extra cost on to you. So it's going to have a farther reaching effect. So I think it's really important for us to get a stronger sense of the impact of the hearing and what it can mean for each and every one of us. Madam President, would you like to continue, or can we hear now from Mr. Brown?
No, I would need to continue.
All right.
Thank
so
you,
yes, I take this opportunity then to hand back to BARP President Marilyn Weisbrunn. And honestly, Ms. Weisbrunn, I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge your presence so far at pretty much, I think, all of the proceedings so far, and also taking the tenacity and initiative to even open up the conversation this evening for BARP members to get, and larger, wider public, to get a stronger sense of what this could mean for each and every one of us individually and collectively. Ms. Weisbrunn.
Thank you very much, Belle, and a welcome to everybody this evening. Dame Billy Miller, Vice President of BARP, Orson Simpson, our Secretary, Monica Hines, Federal Directors Eric Smith, Henry Barrow, Irene Sandiford Garner, Lennox Prescott, and Anthea Ishmael, management and staff of BARP, members of the BARP Charitable Trust, members of BARP, or interveners, or special guests or interveners. They have been working very hard. Over the past few years, they've been working behind the scenes, but to see them working 8 to 4, and I'm aware that after some meetings, they go into another meeting to strategize. I am conscious of when their meetings, when they use the BARP or the BARP boardroom, because we have said to them, the boardroom is yours whenever you need to. But so I welcome the interveners. And when I think of the interveners, I think about Trisha Watson, David Simpson, Trevor Brown, Ricky Wendt, Doug Skeet. Doug Skeet is BARP's intervener. So there are a lot of people putting a lot of pieces together, and we applaud them for the effort. This evening, we have noted with profound interest your interest in this matter, which of course is one of national importance. And I want to thank everyone for making BARP a priority this evening. We are aware that the traffic is horrendous and getting home might have been a challenge, so that's why we delayed a bit. But this evening, I want to share a background with you as to why we are here. You will hear from BARP's representative to the hearing, Ms. Doug Skeet, Chartered Accountant. Some of the interveners are here, some of them are listening, and some of them will join and share what they have been doing so far as they seek to solicit your support, because the interveners, they have done a tremendous job and they're fighting for you, but you're absent. So what we need to see, we want to see some we want to see the public gallery fill. They are working in your interest. We want to see that public gallery fill. One of the pillars of BARP, advocacy is one of our pillars. And although we've been working in the field as advocates over the years, this one is, of course, the most public. And and I also want to state here that when we advocate for BARP members, all seniors in Barbados benefit. So it's not only the members of BARP, but all seniors. Want to briefly look at the role of the FTC. Now, the FTC, if you go on their website, one of the statements that jumped out at me, and I just copied it. It says that the division serves as one of the guardians of consumer rights, and that is a state agency. The Public Council, the role of the Public Council is to represent the interests of domestic, telephone, electricity, water, gas, and transport consumers in utility regulation matters before the fair trading. In addition to this role, the Office of Public Counsel is charged with the mandate of representing consumers and other interest groups in preparing submissions. In February 2nd, 2022, we filed an affidavit, and we were the Public Council. We were in communication with the then Public Council about our role in the upcoming rate hearing. And however, then communication was lost. On the 14th of September, I'm so sorry. On the 14th of September, we were notified by the Public Counsel's Department, the Department of Public Counsel, that the Public Counsel was on sick leave, extended sick leave, and that a new acting Public Counsel will take up the position on the 19th of September. When we recognized that, we didn't panic, but we thought that it was important that we file a motion seeking an adjournment, because of course the new Public Counsel was taking up assuming duties on the 19th of April, and the rate hearing was on the 21st, so she needed time. We filed the motion on the 16th of September. It was heard on the 21st, and it was denied on that same date. What I want to state here is that to us as seniors, access to justice was denied on the 21st of September. And, you know, it's difficult to digest, because here, on one hand, we have the Ministry of People's Empowerment and Elder Affairs. They're working tirelessly to protect and preserve the rights of seniors in Barbados. And on the other hand, another state agency, the Fair Trading Commission, they ensure that they're trampled on the rights of seniors, and all of this occurred in Senior Citizens Month. We then also brought a motion seeking a stay to the hearing to see if they would have allowed us then to go and file some. I'm not too acquainted with the judicial review on an injunction, but we wanted to seek a further adjournment in view of the fact that it was denied by the Fair Trading Commission. Our next step was to go to the Supreme Court to file an injunction. We have examined this for quite a while, and fair, I don't like to use words like fair, and because that's not in my DNA, but our concern is that, because you know everybody, they've been making contributions, but our concern is if we file that injunction and we lose, then we could find, this is what we were told, that we might find ourselves having to absorb the cost. And BARP cannot absorb costs. And we will say it could run into thousands of dollars. We just can't. We just don't have that option. But this evening, we also have some attorneys who are members of BARP who want to make a contribution to this discussion as well. Members, we will continue to advocate for the rights of seniors in this country, and we will continue to attend the hearing. But I'm pleading with you to play a more active role in these proceedings because, quite honestly, we are feeling lonely. You know, if you recognize the level of work the interveners have put in, and then they still have to go and make contributions at the hearing, and then when you look behind, there's no one in the public gallery. There's a feeling of loneliness, and I'll end here because this evening is not for me to address the gathering, but we want to hear from you, and we want to hear from our other BARP members as well. But I want to end by stating here that, as Bell alluded to earlier, some people will say, well, if it's $10 only, like Bill, I could survive. It's $5, but it goes deeper than that. Any increase in electricity or water will go up, or the chicken, the rice, and I don't know because how many of you could absorb any further increases, and we are particularly concerned about the very vulnerable in our group. Corporate Barbados will pass any increase on to us. So that is not a problem for them, but we cannot pass anything to anybody. That is why it is so important that you, each and every one of you, get involved in this action. Maybe you want to write to your church, maybe you want to write to your MP, you want to go on the call-in programs, you should be at Accra. There's room for you at Accra, but I want to see you getting involved. This matter is so important that right now, each and every one of us should be focusing on what we can do in your little groups, in your church groups, in your little like dancing groups. If you go to Q, the only conversation that should be coming from your lips right now is the impact of any raises in the electricity rates in this country. We cannot afford it, but we want each and every one of you. We have in excess of 20,000 BARP members. Your voices can make a difference. Collectively, your voices can make a difference. And I'm begging you, please, please join this crusade, because the future of our future depends on it. And I don't know, as I said earlier, but not many people can absorb any increases. I end by advising you to keep the pressure on. And today is BARP, today's the senior citizens, whichever group will be next. Not everybody has a body like BARP to advocate for them. So members of BARP, when we are through tonight, I want you to commit. I don't want you to say it now, but at the end of this discussion tonight, I want you to commit to action. We don't want you to be sleeping anymore. This is too important. Very, very important. And I can't stress the importance enough. I want to end here, but I want to go back over to Belle. And during the discussion, we'll get a little deeper. But I want you, as you listen, I want you, as you participate this evening, to think of your role, what you can do to make a difference for each and every one of us in Barbados as we fight. Yeah, you can use the word fight. As we fight this electricity BLPC rate hearing. And I want you, in closing, this is really closing now, to commend in prayer the interveners. Their task is not easy. They need to be strengthened by your prayer as well. Belle, I thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And I take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of a few of the other interveners. So Tricia Watson, attorney at law, has joined us. Thank you so much for being here. And also here with us this evening is Ricky Went, intervener and BARP representative at the rate hearing. And actually, no, sorry, I think Douglas Heath is here, chartered accountant of Skeet Best and Company. Good evening to you. And we're hoping that Ricky Went and David Simpson will be able to join us this evening. Trevor Brown is also here with us. He's an engineer and chairman of the Coalition of Cooperatives and Concerned Citizens. So, Mr. Brown, we're going to come over to you. I was present today. I heard some of the proceedings. What can you share with us this evening in terms of an update and how the process is going so people have a deeper understanding? And maybe, Marilyn just shared some specific examples of it being collected within your individual groups, whether it be church groups or organizations. From your perspective as an intervener, what can people do? How can people get involved? How can they add their voice to the fray and make some kind of impact?
Okay, well, first of all, let me say thank you all very much for giving me the opportunity to say a couple of words. I'm particularly impressed that you give me the chance to start the proceedings. I was prepared to listen to BARP's actual representative first and then give you a little bit about myself, but I'll be as brief as possible. So I actually am a member of BARP, so I feel quite at home here, to be quite honest. But in the rear hearing, I actually represent the collective cooperative bodies of Barbados. Now, just a little bit of background. This whole question of energy is critically important. It is going to be important to everyone that lives in Barbados and, in fact, in this world. And I can promise you that it is only going to become more and more important. If you understand what is happening in the world of energy, we are at a very critical point because you see what is happening with the price of fuel. And in Barbados, our situation is even more complicated because, as you should be aware, government is in the process of transitioning from the use of extremely expensive fossil fuels that we have to find foreign exchange to purchase to the use of renewable sources like sun, wind, biofuels. And technology has reached the stage where we know that that is actually quite possible. Now, it happens to be also quite complex, but the savings that the country would earn by this transition are so impressive. And we are talking about in the region of $500 million every year. So we are seeking to do this. The net result of all this, the implications are that energy is going to impact everyone. So in answer to your question, Belle, about what every single Barbadian should do, what every single BARP member should do, and certainly what we've been trying to encourage every single one of our cooperative members, and I'm sure that there's some people who are in both, is to pay an interest in what is happening. Now, what actually is happening is that we're in the middle of a rate case, but this is not even the real complication that we face as a country. Energy in Barbados is undergoing massive transformation. Now, just to give you an idea of the kind of changes we're talking about and why you should be interested and why you should make it your business to stay interested and to understand what's going on. Since the last rate case in 2010, Barbadians have paid something like $6.3 billion in electricity bills. Let me say that again, right? That is $6,300 million that Barbadians would have paid since 2010 for electricity bills. This is like $480 million per year. It is not small change. Since 2011, the ownership of the Barbados Light and Power has changed, as you know, because Emira of Canada acquired shares in the company. And they actually changed the dynamics of the company. Just to say a little bit about Light and Power, even before the other the other interveners come in, because I think this background is important. Energy is so critical to Barbados that the Barbados Light and Power Company is not a normal company. It's not a private company owned by anyone. It is actually a regulated public utility. Now, what that means is that it was created by laws in Barbados for what they call the public good of Barbados. This is a mechanism through which electricity is meant to be provided to Barbadians. And the way it actually works is that this operation is created by law, and it is then leased to operators for a period of time to actually run the business. So, for example, during this dispensation, Emira holds the license to operate this regulated public utility, and that license actually expires in 2028. which means that they also have concerns about what happens after 2028. So you may be aware that there are also applications for a license at the same time. There are applications for changes in rates, and there's also the government national energy policy, which seeks to make major changes in the structure of the whole energy profile. This $6 billion operation over the last 11 years is undergoing massive change. Now, understand that this impacts many people in many ways and with large amounts of money at stake. One of the concerns that you would have heard us raising as interveners is the fact that we, in going through the operations for the last couple of years, we have determined that dividends paid to shareholders have been in the region, the total region, a region of about $48 million per year for a total of $538 million in the last 13 years. Now that is nothing to sneeze at. And you must understand that when these volumes of profits are at stake, it is important that transparency come to the fore. And the best way to have transparency is to have people like BARP, like the credit union movement, and like all organized groups, but most importantly, all individuals asking questions, looking for fairness and demanding it, understanding how the operation works, and making sure that your interests are protected. So I want to support everything that's been said by the president of BARP, that every one of us need to play a role. It's fine for the interveners. I just found myself in a position where the credit union movement, the cooperative movement, we are interested in investing in energy because we do have some funds for investment. Energy is particularly attractive because of the returns that are available, and also because it is so critically important to the success of Barbados going forward that we want to play a part in that. And because of our interests, we took it upon ourselves to find out more about how the system works, how we can get involved, and what the implications are for our investments. That's why we are involved. The more we get involved, the more we understand the need for people like BARP to become involved, for individual Barbadians to become involved. So we strongly support the call of BARP for all members to jump on board, ask questions. So I'm not going to go on too long. And what I'm hoping, we did have a session similar to this in the cooperative movement. And our expectation and our intent really was that it was an opportunity for members to ask questions, to really understand what is going on from their perspective, to clarify any misconceptions they have. And with people like Tricia, for example, will be able to respond, because it is a fairly complex operation we're talking about, the legal aspects of it. So we're lucky to have the quality of persons who intervene. And this is an excellent opportunity to find out more about it and make sure that when you leave here this evening, you understand the importance of what is happening, the fact that it is going to impact on your life, whether you like it or not going forward, and the critical value that your input is going to make. The whole intent is for everything to be fair and transparent. The intent is not necessarily to deny lightning power and increase if, in fact, it is determined that it is deserved. Well, the truth is that the reason why lightning power has been constituted by law as a regulated public utility is because Barbados cannot be successful unless lightning power is successful. This is the engine of our growth. No lightning power, no water, no light, no electricity, no telephone, no communications, no nothing. It is important that it be successful. What is even more important is that it be run transparently, fairly, and in the interest of all the stakeholders. And let me close by telling you who the stakeholders are. Number one, the people of Barbados and the people who are customers of electricity is the key, critical. This is the reason for being. The government is also a major stakeholder because they grant the licenses. The FTC monitors the operation and decides what the rate should be and how it must run. Ultimately, it is not Emira that decides how lightning power run, it is the Fair Trading Commission. The other stakeholders, of course, are the investors who get to invest capital to fund the operation of lightning power. And lastly, I would suggest to you, the employees whose job it is to carry out the mandate of the board of directors and of the FTC to make electricity work in Barbados. It is important for us that this system all works. And I put it to you that it will only work well and in everyone's interest if you, every one of you, pay attention, get interested, and learn as much as you can about what we're doing, why we need to do it, and make sure that you are happy that it's being done fairly and transparently. And my first thought comes here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was Trevor Brown. He's an engineer. He's chairman of the Coalition of Cooperatives and Concerned Citizens, an intervener in the BLPC rate hearings. I want to go now to Mr. Douglas Skeet, who's a chartered accountant of Skeet Best and Company and BARP representative as an intervener in the hearings. Mr. Skeet, are you ready? Douglas, are you there?
Bell,
Hi.
you can hear me?
We can hear you. Yes, please. Are you ready to go?
Yes. Yeah. Well, Mr. Brown has provided a fair amount of information to you.
Indeed, he has.
Yeah. So I'm not going to add a lot more to what he has shared with you, except to say that this process is clearly an important process. What Mr. Brown could have added was, well, that not only is the Light and Power a private company wholly owned by Amira, but it is also a monopoly. So because of its special status, that is why we have a regulatory authority in the FSC that has to determine what price increases, if there are any. There could also be price or tariff increases or tariff decreases as necessary in determining what consumers of the electricity service should pay. So that is very important for the consumers. The interveners play an important role in trying to balance the interests of the public, because we know that Light and Power has got its own team of lawyers and other advisors who are representing them or who represent them in all of these rate hearings. Trevor has mentioned we had a rate hearing in 2008 at which the tariffs were increased, and Light and Power has obviously now coming back to the public in 2020 asking for an additional increase. Now, what this increase means, and everybody has been saying, is if the increase is granted, it does not only affect the consumer, but there's a knock-on impact on other costs, because energy is critical to the operations of any country. So as consumers go into the supermarkets and other places purchasing goods and services, any increase is going to have an effect on those prices. So as interveners, we are here to ensure that the case as put by the Barbados Light and Power is one that we are comfortable with. We have to question some of the information that is provided to us to ensure there's fairness. And at the end of it, once we have done that job, whatever decision the FTC comes up with, we obviously have to be comfortable with the work we have done. So that essentially is what our role is. And for those of the members, we have to encourage the members of BARP. The meeting room is not a big room, but there are spaces within the meeting room, probably for another 20 or 30 persons. So it would be important for those who can come to come in the room and listen. The process is very technical in nature. It is a regulatory process. It's not, this process doesn't happen every day. So, it's once in about 15 years when these rate hearings come along that you will get an opportunity to hear and understand and try to appreciate what is going on with the utility company, the interveners, and the regulatory authority. So with that, I leave it there, and hopefully, if need be, if there's any other information that you need me to provide, I can come back, if necessary, at a later time and just provide any additional information you need of me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Skeet. I am sure that many of you, like myself, who are listening, you're learning a lot and have lots of questions as well. So there will be an opportunity for Q&A and comment. I am really pleased to say that Tricia Watson, attorney at law, is here with us this evening. And we would love the opportunity to hear directly from her. Ms. Watson, are you ready? Good evening, Ms. Watson. Are you with us?
Yes.
Oh, hi there. Thank you so much for being here. I know it's been a long day for you in terms of being present today at the rate hearing and doing your job to the best of your ability, of course. And then, of course, now, you know, it's an extended evening for you. So I'm just really happy and grateful on behalf of everyone who's here to learn more and have a better understanding that you've taken the time to join us. We really appreciate it. What can you share with us about the proceedings so far, and you know what better understanding that the public and BARP members can understand about the process?
Good night, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, here you go ahead.
Okay, good. Good night to everyone. Please excuse me for having my video off. I've been having some network challenges, and you know, the streaming of the video makes that even worse.
Yeah, I understand.
We may get another rate case very soon. They think they seem to be having some network challenges, but don't say that I said that out loud. Let's talk a little bit about, there are a couple of things that I want to say. I'll try to keep it brief because I'm also trying to preserve my voice. My doctor once said to me, if I want to not have bronchial problems, just shut up. So I may have to do that more than I normally would. A little bit about what we're doing here, a little bit about it, and as I said, it's a technical exercise. Outside of the drama that occurs from time to time, particularly around motions, there is going to be a very strenuous examine interrogation of the witnesses to ensure that there is an elucidation of information that's been provided thus far, and also to get some information that has not been provided so far. And so if you do attend, you can expect that you will have to go through sometimes some tedious information gathering, but it's all relevant and all very important. Our role as interveners is to help to elicit that information and to shed light on some of the issues or some issues that are coming to its decision. We don't do that, but we present our arguments and get the information from the company to help the tribunal to come to its conclusion, because all of the information on record is to be taken into account. The Fair Trading Commission has a consumer rate case. The FTC has to balance the interests of the service provider, pay those rates, and that is the law. And therefore, I think it is very important that the FTC is reminded of its requirement to take the consumer into account. That's where your presence comes in, because I think oftentimes the FTC members and staff sitting in panels and sitting there, and then the staff sitting on the side, and Light and Power, well, whichever utility, but now it's Light and Power, so it tends to forget the consumer. The interveners are sitting there, everybody is, nicely turned out. They're obviously professional people, and therefore they will articulate. Regular patrons are not seen unless they're in the gallery sitting down. And so it is just these interveners who are doing whatever they're doing, whatever their objective is. There's the company that's put in the application, and there are the technical people, with the technocrats in the FTC staff, secretariat, and then the commissioners themselves. And right now in our hearing, the consumer is missing. So that even if Marilyn attends or Irene has attended there, and they come and they sit among us, they're not in the gallery, and they're simply going to be seen as the representatives of the intervener BARP. And I don't think that we can stress the need for the presence of the consumer enough. And I think it's also important for Barbados Light and Power to see its customers, because it talks a lot about its shareholders, much about its customers, except insofar as they may precipitate their rate structure or something like that. So I think we need to see the people who will be affected by this. And so I exhort you to come. I think that is extremely important. And of course, you also get the opportunity then to interact in particular, less of the staff, because some of the staff might be drifting around to get to, but there's not that much interaction. You do have an opportunity interaction with the Barbados like then. I think that is important. Everything that you will face into that is unavoidable.
Actually, Ms. Watson, we're actually going to relieve you at this moment, because we really do need you to preserve your voice. And we can tell in terms of your internet connection, it is dropping in and out a bit. So I think one of the most important things that Ms. Watson has shared with us this evening is that physical presence, a visual presence of seeing Barbadians sitting in that room, because they want to be represented. They want to show their numbers. I know that the room is small, so which means if we get 25 people, it will have a visual impact. And I think that's so important. And the C word that Ms. Watson just used, consumer, is so important as a collective. And I want to thank you so much. Please preserve that voice. We know that you still have some work ahead of you. So Ricky Went, who's an intervener and BARP representative at the rate hearing, has joined us this evening. And I know there was some time back before the hearing actually began that at BARP's AGM, Mr. Went took the opportunity to really give a detailed update. So I'm really excited to hear from him now in terms of where we are, what are some of the questions that we as consumers should be asking? Should we keep our fingers crossed about the outcome? And I know that at this point, people may not want to make any projections or prejudice anything in any way, but Barbadians are talking. And so, Mr. Went, I want to say welcome and good evening to you.
Good evening to you. Good evening to everyone. So I just got online, so I've pretty much missed virtually everything that Tricia would have said. So I suspect she's covered everything. So you only want to see my chart, but if that is it, well, then I'm here. So if I do overlap, then please forgive me. In terms of where we are, we're only at the first witness now, but this is critical. That's the managing director. This is the crunch time because remember that in the red herring, as Tricia would have mentioned, at the end of the day, if you're going to get any variation in the revenue requirement, that has to be based on evidence. So you have to be able first to identify areas of weaknesses, which Tricia's done a really good job in doing, not interveners. For example, you would have heard even on the news, the whole matter of, was the steam plant one of the major reasons why not changing that plant was that one of the major reasons why we had that sad affair in Barbados that where no electricity in November, 18th and 19th of 2019. We never thought we'd get something like that. So, so the areas like that shows that it's factual stuff. So what we've got to go through now is all the key areas, which Tricia's done a good job today with Mr. Blackman, then the other witnesses will come. As you all know, I'm in this thing for equity. So as I said to Paul, look, we want to go home and find the lights are working, but we want to make sure the rates are affordable. And there's so many areas where we see that, we're questioning, we have to question them. In my cross-examination today, we started again by looking at the steam plant because I was not convinced at all that you can come to a hearing, the last hearing, make a commitment to change a plant that would then save the consumers and the country $30 million. And then, that doesn't happen. And then by the time we get to 2022, now we're here, the same type of plant, medium speed diesel plant is in service. So the question then becomes, that is too much money that we should have saved. So the Lightning Paul would have given 6 or 7 reasons for those. And I want to address each one of them individually because from my experience, back in the days with Sir Harrison John, he said this is about evidence. So you have to address every single area that they said were the reasons. And some of the reasons given, all the reasons given apart from one of them, clearly was not enough not to have changed the same plan. So we, for example, pointed out that, look, you said one of the issues is low sales. We showed that the customer growth has been continuing year on year during that period. We also looked at, so that's the idea of flat sales, the idea of renewable energy. Like Paul itself said back in 2009 that they're looking at changing their portfolio mix for generation, including renewable energy. So you can't tell us no, you install the same plant because that you're now saying renewable energy. And there's so many things that were like that. So we want to establish clearly that there was no basis for not replacing the steam plant that we could have benefited from the fuel charge. And the fuel charge is what? $202 million in 2020, $270 million in 2021. So you just have to take $30 million off that fuel charge all the time, which is exclusively paid by customers. So that's one aspect of it. The next aspect that I touched on today, which would have received a lot of attention, was this question of the self-insurance fund. But I wanted to deal with insurance generally. So when I left the testimony the previous day, I got the impression that Lightning Paul was saying that the shareholders put money in to start the fund. It was only through cross-examination we then, through following upon some cross-examination by the Commissioner Martinez, that we discovered that we made it quite clear. All the monies that were received by Lightning Paul came from the consumers. So any money you spend anywhere would have come from the consumers. So this idea that only in the 19 and the 2009 rate hearing and the 2008 test year, that hearing included money for the self-insurance fund and for insurance. That is nonsense. All the money was received by customers. If it was that the shareholders in their generosity had said, well, we see Barbados could face a hurricane, they cannot get any insurance, and we are very nice people, so we're going to set up an established fund and put money, inject funds in for that fund. Well, then yes, but that was money from the ratepayers that was set aside and then over the years built up. So I'll demonstrate tomorrow going forward that 4 million a year, sometimes 7, sometimes 8, to the extent that in 2012, the study showed that the self-insurance fund had $120.4 million in it. And they said then that time that was good enough for reasonable coverage. And now on top of that, by 2015, it had been $146 million. So why should America be allowed to just take out $99.5 million and just take it out that fund? And on top of that, now asking us to be able to pay a 50% increase in the depreciation expense in the test year. Well, it means that Beijing should not have gone to school. So we've got to really be tackling these matters and so on. And I told them we're going to be very rigorous. So the issue becomes, in the end, we have to be able to demonstrate that the decisions taken in relation to the funding that was provided by the ratepayers, in many instances, were not prudent and did not serve the best interests of all the stakeholders, including Emera, including all the shareholders. So that's the other part. There's a lot of other things we have to come to. We've got to look at the test year, which Tricia started on today. A big area is depreciation, which receives some attention. We have 2 big issues on it. The board can give a ruling and then you ignore that ruling. We were surprised. Well, I shouldn't say surprised, because some of the decisions that we're getting, we wonder if it was on the other side, if it was gone the way it did. But I'm not worried with that. I'm treating the hearing now like anybody who knows cricket would know that in the 1980s, the West Indies realized that no matter what they do, the ICC will never set a rule to suit the West Indies. Never. So what do you think the guys did? The guy says, okay, you set the rules, but we are going to learn your rules. And we are going to beat you at your game with your own rules. And so you got 5-love in England, and that was called a whitewash. We came that shirt with no fluke. You came down to the West Indies and we get 5-love again with your own rules. Then that was called a blackwash. So that's the approach that I'm using. You set the rules, fine. I'm not worried with those anymore. But what we're going to do is to say, look, if it is that you say that the generation plan, that you disallowed the life, therefore it was not approved, and like Paul has been using that depreciation within its financials, that's $7 million difference. So you can't come and tell me it's not approved, but you still want us to give you an additional $7 million in revenue requirement. It just doesn't add up. So this is the kind of stuff that you see. So, I know some of my friends from Line Paul would probably be on the call, but, they can hear it because it's not going to change. So in essence, then, what we're going to be doing then going forward is looking very, very critically at every aspect. So that's what you'll be getting from me over next. Could be a day, could be 2, depends on how soon we get. And I'm not here to find any embarrassment or ridicule either Mr. Blackman, like Paul, any of it. What we want is to make sure. And we cannot inject the kind of money that we inject in the company, we being the ratepayers, and then found ourselves that money has gone, only then to find we've been asked to pay 50%, for example, on insurance, and then find ourselves in a situation where if the rates are so high that the small business is impacted to the extent that they say, well, look, I've got to run my freezers in case of the supermarkets. I've got to be able to run my air condition in case of our business and so on. What will happen is ultimately would impact on people either going home or prices going up to consumers. And that's fine if it is that it was something that was genuine. But it can't be that you take out $100 million and then we have to still do that. That doesn't feel right to me. It can't be that the depreciation expense, for this clean energy bridge, you have 4 diesel plants, 4 diesel units. You in your study said that they're 33 years. That was 2018. They're now 37 years on average. But you still want to put the new one in at 25 years so that the revenue requirement will be $5.3 million instead of probably 3.8. So when you go through every one of these things, it says no. And that's why then we then have to get to the bottom of these. So those are the things that we'll be going through. I don't mean to litigate it here, but I want to give you an indication of what we're up against, because it's going to be a long haul, and I know a little something about the rate making. So we're going to have a long haul of this. Now, the thing is now, in terms of decision making, we have to bear in mind that it was important for BARP to take a stand, because you put any one of us on this call, or anyone in any room, in any discipline, and you say to them, I'm giving you 3,500 pages, and you come in 2 days ago, even if it was a novel, it is tough going. So we believe, firmly believe, that there should have been some time given, okay? Even if it was not nearly as much that was being asked for. Yeah, there must have been a way where some time could be given, even if it says, look, we will continue by give you some time, and then you will still get the opportunity. But there must be a way. I don't like it. It hurts me. It hurt me very badly. I spoke to Martin, and I can tell you. Yes.
Yeah. So, because we are quickly running out of time, we're going to go until 8 p.m. And so we really wanted the opportunity for persons who are here to have some Q&A. I know people probably have some burning questions. So I want to thank you so much for your comments and your continued work on the hearings. Tricia Watson is still with us, attorney at law. And I know, Tricia, you wanted to add a couple of comments so we can then get to the Q&A quickly.
Just before you go to Ms. Bell, we have to ask ourselves, though, because this thing burned me. I just wonder if any one of us would be in that position, would feel good about that. Now, I know BARP has to take a decision from the point of view of the risk and everything, and the lawyers will have to see how, you know, what kind of success rate they can have. We faced a similar thing, as I told Marlon, when we came with the class action suit. So, I mean, these things remind me always of, you know, you have to ask if Rosa Parks didn't stay up. I mean, these things, you have to find a way. So I was asking myself if there was a way that BARP could have find its members contribute $1 and then ask co-op to match that dollar, because we have to be careful, because today's you and tomorrow's me, and vice versa. So that's all of it from me.
All right, thank you, Mr. White. Ms. Watson, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. So go ahead. I hope you have a stronger connection.
Are you hearing?
There were two quick comments.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think, yeah, sorry.
Just get to
I just dropped out.
With our attendees. Go ahead.
Yes, that's fine. Right, so I think I'm essentially finishing what I want to say about being present. But then as it relates to it, Ricky touched on it a little bit, the issue of how you can support whether you go to court on this particular matter of an adjournment. And I think maybe Hal may have something to say about that, but it may now be that because public counsel is proceeding to prepare her case, that may be something on which the window has closed. But it is very possible that we will have to look at other action coming in the High Court coming out of this rate case. In particular, if it's setting principles and rules and standards that we will find to be burdensome going forward. And so when BARP thinks about any possibility of fundraising, it may well be to just have a fund that can assist should anything come up out of this case that we want to head off the court on. Either you go as a party or you go as an interested party or as a co-party. But that's something that I would like to put before you so that you can prepare yourself for that. As I've said in other fora, if it is a case of putting whatever 1 month of your increase into a fund, I think that that's tolerable if we can reverse any rulings that we are satisfied with coming from the commission. Like I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And I understand that attorney at law Hal Gollop is also with us. Mr. Gollop, good evening to you. You wanted to add a comment or quickly before we get to the Q&A? Mr. Gollop?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Well, there isn't much I can add because what is being said by previous speakers has to do with the actual hearings which have been going on and the various approaches to getting the message across, as it were, that the rate increase is unreasonable. I do not have a grasp of a lot of the technical data. So I could not comment on some of the things, for example, like what former speakers spoke about. I have been concerned about the role of BARP insofar as it was seen that there has been a controversy as to whether BARP is, whether BARP has any local standing in the matter, whether BARP is in fact a proper party in the action. I've heard that being mooted around, being discussed, points for and against, but I would have thought that from the moment the Fair Trading Commission accepted BARP as having local standing, that matter would have been settled. But speaking to somebody this evening, I got the impression that that was still up in the air. Can the president say what the true position is on this? Is that still an issue that is up in the air, or is it a matter that has been resolved? From my perspective, if the commission, Fair Trading Commission, has accepted BARP as having standing, but then that is the end of the matter. But am I correct in feeling that the matter is no longer up in the air and that it has been resolved?
Can you
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hal, and thank you for joining us as well. Where we are with the matter right now, everything is, let's say, on pause. The hearing is continuing. The public counsel speaks on behalf of BARP. That is still being allowed by the Fair Trading Commission. So they didn't come out definitively and say BARP. The statement was made by an attorney, but the Fair Trading did not come out and say to him, no, that's not true, or because we have conferred intervener status on BARP, and we do recognize that the public counsel is representing BARP. I say this because when we were advised on the 14th that there wasn't a public counsel in place, and there wouldn't be a public counsel in place until September 19th. I then, myself and the interim CEO, Dr. Jilts, we placed a conference call to Fair Trading, and we told them what we were just made aware of. And they stated that, they said, oh no, BARP, you are being represented by the public counsel. So they are aware. But to be quite honest with you, Hal, we have not tested it. So I'm speaking to you as a layman. All I can say, and maybe Ricky, Tricia, or one of the others can support me in this. All I can say to you is that as it stands, I would say that they have recognized BARP as an intervener, and they have recognized the public counsel as our legal representative. As a matter of fact, on every issue, the applicant speaks first, and then public counsel gets the opportunity to speak after. So I don't know if one of the attorneys on the call can add another view, but this is from a layman's perspective, this is what I see. What I thought that should have happened is that when the attorney made that statement, the Fair Trading Commission, that stage, stop him and say to him, BARP has status, and so that we would be, you'll be in a more comfortable position. But quite honestly, we going along that we have status as interveners, and the public council is indeed representing us. But back to you, Hal.
Yeah, but I mean, that is a very reasonable, common sense position. It's also a legal position. If the hearing has gone on so far and you are being entertained by the Fair Trading Commission, it means that you have standing. They cannot have you there acting in a role which suggests that you have standing, and they're taking cognizance of what you're saying and all of that without implicitly admitting that you have standing. So I don't think you should worry too much now about that. It's a little too late in the hearing to raise the issue whether BARP has standing or not, if the Fair Trading Commission has been treating BARP as having standing. I mean, they're the people conducting the hearing, and if they are treating BARP as having standing, that is the end of the matter as far as I'm concerned. So I don't think you should worry yourself too much about any further of whether you have standing or not. If they're hearing you, it means that you have standing. The issue of the public council, that is something which I am not so clear about myself. In my view, the public council had a strong legal ground for asking for an adjournment, but that was refused. As a matter of fact, looking down the road, I look at it as a lawyer. Looking down the road, that may be held as a view for a review of the decision, because it is too late in the day now to question the issue of adjournments. And I've said this to other people. I've certainly made the point to Tricia, that since about 1999, our Court of Appeal laid down the rule that the right to an adjournment is a constituent of one's right to a fair hearing. It is an natural justice point. So I was quite alarmed to hear counsel on the other side in speaking against the request for an adjournment. I was quite alarmed to hear him say it has no basis in law. Well, that is 24 years of what I'm speaking about, where that decision was handed down in our Court of Appeal. And I know of it intimately because it was a case which I brought before the Court of Appeal. And I can say further that same case, Milton King and the Queen, has been used ever since then as an authority for that principle, that a right to an adjournment is a constituent of a fair hearing. But I am interested to find out what is going on. I am here, I'm a member of BARP. So in a sense, I'm also protecting my own interests. That is from a personal standpoint, but as a person intimately connected with and interested in public law, I am having a close look at it. Unfortunately, I did not get sufficiently well involved in the initial stages to make myself aware of some of the technical data. But technical data is another aspect which is not within my immediate grasp. Tricia obviously is an expert in this area because she has had experience in it. It's not the kind of law that one comes across every day. So Tricia should be of invaluable help, even in my view, even to BARP's case. And it might suit BARP's, it should, not might, it should suit BARP's advocacy if they can, as it were, hold on to Trisha's experience and expertise. That, in my view, will win the day, because you should look down the road. I have had my own view about how this thing has been brought on stream. I support the view that was raised by Caswell Franklin, that the present chairman cannot legally chair this hearing, but that has been allowed to go. So in my view, you already have grounds for going higher. And I think that the case should be followed with should be pursued with very close scrutiny, because I see it as something that will go down the road. For that the decision will go beyond any decision which the Fair Trading Commission may give now. So I would just like to wish you well. I am not against pitching in if the situation allows, to offer what little assistance or expertise or both I may be able to do. But I am a conscientious observer. Let me just put it at that. I'm not unwilling to lend support if need be.
Thank you so very much, Al. And I could say, like Trisha and the interveners, we are all familiar with it. I would just say, noted.
I didn't hear that.
No, there's a little joke that we have at the hearing. So there's a comment that's always said, some person always said noted. So I'm saying noted. But I've noted your comments with interest. And of course, because as I said, one of the pillars of our operation is advocacy, I would want to have a deeper conversation with you, with the board as well, because we would want to see what we can do going forward, because this should never happen again. So even, let the hearing go on or whatever, but whatever we can do after, if there is something that we can do after, we have to make sure that never again in this country should anybody be denied access to justice. And that is what is important.
All right, thank you, Mr. Galt. Thank you, Madam President. We're going to take this opportunity now for those who are in attendance to pose questions or comments. Remember, you can raise your hand and then you have the opportunity to pose your question yourself. I'm here looking at the chat. I don't see any questions posed in the chat as yet. However, there is one question that we have received via BARP. And that question is, I'm just going back so I can find the question to share with you. This question is from Selwyn. He says, the interim rate increase appears unlawful. So why is BLMP allowed to do such? I'll repeat the question. He said the interim rate increase appears unlawful. So why is BLMP allowed to do such? That's a question from Selwyn. Can one of the interveners perhaps address that question for us? Douglas? Vicky? Trevor?
Well, I think Trisha, if she's on, is probably the best place as the lawyer.
Right. Yeah, she's having an issue with her voice though. And so our concern is, her straining her voice too much, and then she still has to be
I have
on and present at the rate hearing as well.
I have a similar problem. The issue for me is that whenever you get these matters, we remember when we met immediately after the matter of the public counsel denial, and the challenge always becomes how strong you feel is your case, and in the event, the downside risk, you know, how you're going to fund if you have to pay for the other side. And as I told you all before, I had that in the class action suit against, we had that with Cayman Wireless. Our downside risk was $60,000, but we felt that we have a very strong case. The challenge that we have with the interveners, every time there's a matter like this, which we feel about, and we ask, but if, you know, the court is never slammed down. So if we go with it and we should lose, you know, we're not like Lightning Paul who has the resources. So we have got to find a mechanism, in my view, where that we could challenge these things, because we could have gone and challenged them. But at the end of the day, you know, you have to fund it just in case. So I think that's what like Marlon might have been alluding to, or Tricia, but there must be some mechanism collectively in numbers that we could get, because that should have been challenged. I feel strongly it should have been challenged.
Thank you. Trisha's hand is raised. Trisha, if you can hear me, you can go ahead.
Yes, yes. I will state unequivocally that that decision is unlawful. I have no doubt whatsoever that it is unlawful. Also have no doubt that it must be challenged, which I intend to do. Of course, I'm in a hearing every day. All right. The decision is dangerous. The word that I would use is dangerous because it is that would completely upend our first tier level in our or in our administrative justice system. And those decision authorities and decision makers at the tribunal level, so that's one. Two, looking at the situation,
Just a minute, let me message Trisha.
The entity that they relate could come and for the same relief.
Yeah, we're definitely having some connection issues. If you can hear me, we're having definitely some connection issues. So your voice continues to cut in and out a bit. So then we're missing some of your words in the true je ne sais quoi in terms of what you are attempting to explain to us. And so interestingly enough, one of the questions that has come up here, and I'll throw this question out to all of the interveners, what do you say to an individual who feels as though the feeling around the hearing is that the FTC is supposed to be an impartial body? Am I right in that, correct in that assessment? However, it doesn't feel that way. Can we get a question or comment in response to that? I don't know if anyone else is feeling that or has that sense of, I don't know, it's a lack of, does it just,
can you repeat the question, Belle?
Yeah, so the question is, in anyone else's assessment, and we're just going on feelings here. So the FTC is supposed to be an impartial body, but is there a sense or a feeling that it's not coming across that way?
Oh, okay. I could say from my perspective, I would say it's not coming over that way at all, particularly when we reflect on the denial of the motion seeking the adjournment. But however, we need, that is why it's important that consumers and become involved, attend the hearing, because pressure needs to be placed on FTC as well. But we can only do so much. But if we are fighting, it's what's happening is like there's a big fight going, there's a fight going on, and there are lots of people standing on the side watching, and then about 5 or 6 people out there just going up against the forces. So it can be lonely, but that is why we're saying if you more of our members attend, then you would find that you put a lot more pressure on the FTC. But from where I sit as a consumer and where I sit as a BARP member, trust me, I don't feel that FTC is on our side.
If
But let's open, I recognize that Trevor Brown wanted to make a comment. Trevor? Are there any other comments? Are there any other queries? You know, I can't, as I wait for Trevor to comment, I can't say enough why it's important. It is so important, members, that you come out. You must come out. You must move off the sidelines.
And
It's not good enough.
Madam President, and I wanted to comment actually to support exactly what you said. I think in answer to the question from the participant, it's important to recognize that this is almost like a watershed period in the way that these rate hearings are done. You have to understand that in the past, because of the technical nature and the infrequency of rate hearings, it tended to be an almost private affair between, to be quite honest, the Fair Trading Commission and Light and Power and a few very select interveners. What has happened this time with the intervention of large consumer groups like BARP and the cooperative sector, and technical, very, very technical interveners like Ricky and Tricia, and from an engineer perspective of myself, we have brought a completely different perspective. And I think in all fairness, we probably need to give the Fair Trading Commission the opportunity to adjust to the new reality. Now, what will be very helpful in that is when large numbers of Barbadians, as we've been calling for the whole evening, actually indicate that we care about this, we want to be involved, and we want to be recognized. I actually think it is important that ordinary Barbadians recognize that Barbados Land Power Company Limited, they are the #1 stakeholders. And as somebody said, we're the least among the apostles.
Mhm.
I actually take offense to the fact that the hearing is being held at Accra, with about 6 seats at the back for the audience. I would have thought that something like this should have been at Sherman, where there was almost unlimited parking, easy access, and absolute invitation room for spectators to see what's actually going on. And actually, maybe the way to address that is for 200 or 300 people to turn up a day and try to fit into Accra.
Mhm.
But the whole point I'm making is that it is important that we get the FTC to recognize that this is we are on the other side of the roof. We've passed the watershed. This is something that Barbadians are all interested in because we know it is important and we want to see things. But in all fairness to them, the way they have been configured, the way they have been thinking over the years, the way that they understand how the process works, is quite frankly to ignore us. I mean, and I have to tell you that I have been flabbergasted at the extent to which I have felt, and I can put this very personally so that you can't tell me how I feel, but as an intervener on behalf of the cooperative movement, I have honestly felt disrespected is probably the word that I should use, but on giving it careful thought, this is the way that the FTC has been conditioned, and we are in the process of changing that. And I actually think we are making some progress. It's not as fast as it probably could have been, but I do think we're making some progress. So in answer to the question from the participant, yes, we actually do think that there has been some level of unfairness, but I think we understand where it's coming from, and we certainly understand what needs to be done to address it, even in this hearing, and we're well on the way to do that.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Brown. Maxine McLean has raised her hand. Ms. McLean, you can go ahead with your question or comment, please. She's on mute.
Actually, thank you very much. I made a comment. I raised my hand because I sent a note to Marlene. So perhaps I can just read the note I sent you, Marlene. And I said there needs to be a serious effort to raise funds to support any required challenges, which will end up in the courts, and indeed to assist the costs incurred by the interveners. And my recommendation or question is, can the executive of BARP use its good offices to start a fundraising drive across Barbados and across the diaspora as well? Barbadians overseas are affected by this as well, to create a pool of financial resources to support these objections. And I went on to personalize it. I said I watched my late brother take on these utilities for over 30 years, and there's no exaggeration, on his own with no, in capital letters, financial support. And I suggest that we ask Barbadians as individuals to contribute in units of $10, $100, or $1,000, or whatever else. And I went on to say that as a life member of BARP, Marlene, I don't know if you know that I am, so it shows you how long ago I joined BARP. I am willing to make the first contribution. I will not spell out a number here for whatever reason, but I'm sure my good cooperative friend, Colonel Brown, will match whatever I contribute. But in all seriousness, I think that we have, as persons who benefit, and I want to thank those interveners, because it is critical work that they're doing. I know the tireless work that my brother did and the thankless work. And therefore, I believe Barbadians need to go beyond talking about thanks to Tricia, Ricky, Trevor, etc., and demonstrate that we are willing to do what the cooperative do and pool it. Sorry about that, my phone is going off. And pool its resources to assist. And I personally will try to attend, and I think I have listened to some of these and I really have been offended. I want to register my concern. I think, as Trevor said, the tone of these persons who represent the commission has been condescending. In fact, sometimes to me, I'm not a lawyer. My brother wasn't a lawyer neither, but I think some of us in listening can sense that even their decisions are inaccurate. And frankly, biased. And that is my interpretation. As you say, that's my opinion. But I think we need to go out there in our numbers and say to the government through its agency, to the Barbados Light and Power, and to EMIRA, that we as consumers, as taxpayers, etc., need to have a fair shake. So that's my contribution, and I will follow through with a call to BARP to start that fund, because I think it is absolutely important, because I know I lived it as a member of the McLean family when I saw what Wendell did.
Senator McLean, through the chair, I can't help but add to what you're saying. You know, well, and I were on the other side for many years, right? We were all Commonwealths, but even then, but we were on the other side. And the kind of work that Wendell would have put in, and I mean, long hours. I mean, you just cannot do this stuff unless because you can't go in and talk just generally. You have to make personal sacrifice, which he did. And if it is in his own legacy, I would also like hear that BARP should be seen, because once you're going to raise funds, what we have found in the same class action suit, we were fortunate that Doug allowed us to use his office because people would contribute, but they want to know it went into a formal sector. So it's either that we set up a formal thing managed by BARP, and you could see the accounting of it and so on, and then people will join and support us. But you're quite correct. This idea that we sit on the side and hope, we would not get a lot of people being able to do it at all. And hence, you can't then give like Tricia now the support that we know. She said, look, I'm going to go. We discussed it. I said, well, I'm with you. I'm going to contribute. Travis says, I'm going to with you. But then you still got all that risk you're taking on your own. So if that fund is going to start, I would like to be able to join part of that too. And I'm sure everybody on this call. So I think the thing to do, Marlene, would be, and I'm not prescriptive, the thing to do would be to make it clear that there's some account, something that is established by BARP, that the people know, well, this is an entity you can donate into it and make a appeal that we can then challenge these matters. Senator McLean, and I must continue to call you Senator McLean, sorry you did such a good job, that I'm totally wholeheartedly support with your proposal. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. And I have a comment here from Anderson who says, I do not think that BARP members attending will put enough pressure on the FTC. He says, I think BARP members getting out in the press and public forums is what will have an impact, or BARP holding public forums where Barbadians can voice their thoughts and views is definitely the way to go. I'm gonna say good evening now to Irene Sanford Garner. Good evening to you. Do you have a question or comment?
Hi, I was just about to say I can't unmute myself. Good evening. I guess you called on me because you saw me there yesterday. Because I wasn't going to speak in that. I think that most of the areas have been covered and forget my manners. Good evening, everybody. I wholeheartedly, as a credit unionist, agree with Maxine and Lieutenant Colonel's positions, because in the credit union movement, we understand that a little bit adds up to a lot. And if each member of BARP were to put in $10, we would be in an excellent financial position from the start. We've seen how that kind of seed funding has helped people like Obama in elections, where the average person would have given probably $20 and it amounted to millions. The credit union movement was built on small money. So we understand how small money can grow. But outside of that, I want to speak to the more personal aspect of this, and being there yesterday to offer moral support. Moral support for persons who are on the front line of battle is exceedingly important. When they sit there and face down a battalion of some of the island's most powerful lawyers as interveners, some lawyers, some not lawyers, some probably professionals in their own right, as Lieutenant Brown and David are, and so on, and Doug, accountants and so. It can be demotivating when you look behind you and you see nobody. You see about 24 seats. I counted 24 seats empty, save for 3 people. So there would have been empty seats. People need that kind of moral support when they are doing this kind of work. The interveners are up all night. Some sleep for 3 hours because there are thousands of pages of information that they have to study. And if you put yourself in that position, you would then understand, just imagine the level of personal sacrifice it takes to sit down there and do that kind of work on behalf of Barbados. And the moral support is very important. And I do believe that we need to be able to show up in our numbers, if just, as I said, to give that moral support to those who are fighting on our behalf. And I thank you all for your service.
Thank you, Ms. Sandiford Garner. Tricia Watson, her hand is raised once again.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
On the personal side, I owe one little girl a milkshake a day because I simply haven't been able to stop and buy a milkshake. Just so that you understand the kind of time constraints that one has. And I've been forced to do a little. She says hello because we're here sitting at the same desk as she does her homework. And there is that element because there seems to be some notion that we're robots of some sort and you don't have a life beyond what needs to be done. On the issue of cost, I wanted to address that because while there's discussion about raising funds, I think that it is important to understand what could potentially happen with intervener recovery of costs. My own observation is that there are some occurrences that I think are aimed at eliminating the opportunity to recover costs. That's my own observation. And the rule is that interveners recover costs for their appearances if the FTC thinks that their contributions have been helpful to their understanding of the matter. That's the language generally. And again, that's subjective. So, and costs are within the discretion of the FTC, and therefore there is no guarantee that any intervener will recover the cost for their appearances. And while there are some interveners for whom that might not matter, there are some interveners who are you're not going to call it self-employed, who are business people who are, when we are not doing our work, we are in the rate case. That means that our jobs from which we earn our living are, waiting for us to get there to do work. That also compounds the requirement to do a lot of extra work in relation to this. And we are doing this opposite a large law firm with significant resources. And let us not fool ourselves. We're doing this against Emira's multi-billion-dollar resources. Having done this within a large global company, you can call on those resources. And so there is always a possibility that the 8 lawyers that are, or 7 that are sitting down on the other side are also getting assistance, not only within the firm, but also within a large EMERA legal or regulatory function. I think that that is a distinct possibility. So that when there's talk of going up against this giant company, you are going up against untold resources, untold, maybe not endless, but certainly for those of us who are doing this on an individual basis. And it is unfortunate that the way that the system looks at interveners is that interveners have to come and beg for their money when the company is going to come and say, our lawyers cost X dollars. X is not going to be less than 6 figures. In this rate case, I can't imagine that it's going to be less than 7. And that will go also significant legal costs for the Fair Trading Commission's attorneys, and the ratepayer will pay that money. Those people who, I have no problem with that. I've been in that system for a while. I understand how that works. The problem with it is that the people who are representing the consumer do not have that guarantee. And my observation is that they rarely recover that money. If they recover, it is not in any significant amount. And so you have to throw that into the equation as well, because then you're looking at another imbalance, we use the term rate setting world, asymmetry of information, asymmetry of knowledge. There's significant asymmetry of resources, and then there will be a significant asymmetry of compensation. And that too then acts as a deterrent generally to people getting involved in these kinds of matters. That's just a fact. And I think, again, if we're looking kind of more globally at this, we have to look at how this affects advocacy and the efficacy of advocacy. And so when you're looking at the issue of cost and contribution and so on, I want you to also have that good understanding of the realities of cost recovery in that rate case for the interveners. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Watson. Mr. Gollop, we're going to come to you, and immediately after that, Anderson Henry, I see your hand is raised. We're going to come to you immediately after Mr. Gollop. Mr. Gollop, go ahead, please, if your comment or question.
Yeah, the comments of Ms. McLean and Major Brown I find very interesting. And as a public lawyer advocate, I smiled because both persons made it very clear that what they saw coming from the Fair Trading Commission represents, whichever, so if this is an ongoing process, matters of bias. And in that regard, you should gird your loins, because the Fair Trading Commission is playing straight into the intervener's hands if that Fair Trading Commission is so clearly biased, because bias is a very, 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 very low standard, has a very low standard to satisfy. And the law is very clear. We're not all lawyers here, but all of you are very intelligent people and could understand basic English, because this is not any legal jargon. Bias is satisfied on a possibility of what can happen. It is not actual bias. You don't have to prove bias. You only have to show that what these people are doing, have done, can possibly can possibly be construed as bias. It is not actual bias. It is a perception rather than an actual thing. And no better person to judge that than the average person. The man on the omnibus. I know persons who spoke are not minibus people. They're out of that generation. So I wouldn't say the people on the Westers minibus or anything. But clearly, people like Major Brown and Ms. McLean admitted they're not lawyers, but people like you are the best judges of bias because you represent the reasonable man. The man who, if you were to hold up in the street and ask, what you think about so and so and so and so, what do you think about how these people are behaving? And that person would say, man, these people are behaving in a manner which clearly demonstrates that they're not acting in an even-handed manner. So you should prepare yourself for going to court on a judicial review matter. The Fair Trading Commission is a statutory body, so its decisions can be reviewed in the High Court. So this may be a long, long battle. This is not something that will turn out to be a sprint. It might not be a marathon, but it certainly would be a 10,000 kilometers or something like that race that could take you beyond these matters at that hotel. And if what I'm hearing coming from reasonable and intelligent observers about the attitude of the Fair Trading Commission, they're playing straight into the hands of the interveners. And that's what is something I would just like to observe.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Henry, can you please go ahead with your question or comment? And then Mr. Brown, we're going to come to you. And after that, actually, it will be time for us to wrap up. Mr. Henry, go ahead.
Thank you very much, and good night to all.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah. I sat here and I listened to the conversation very attentively. And I dropped a line in the chat in terms of support and Barbadians supporting the cause. What I want to draw to your attention is that the average Barbadian might not very well be in supportive of this sort of process because of the knowledge gained and knowledge shared over this process. The comment just now about the minibus men and people, the average Barbadian. If you don't get out to the average Barbadian to educate them and share information as to the things that affect them, the average person does not hold that in high regard. The video presentation and what was shared over the last couple of days, the average Barbadian don't follow. I said that we need to have, whether it's BARP or another body, whichever body, have public forums, have the opportunity where Barbadians can share their views on it to gain that support, because we are in this for the long run. At some stage, we need to come up with a cadre of funds, because this cannot and will not end with this forum that we're in now. For a number of years within the credit union movement, we have had positions where we garner support for different ventures. The notion about having a fund, we have to do go a step further. The days of piecemeal arrangements and things has changed. We all know, educated Barbadians, uneducated Barbadians, that this will affect every Barbadian. They felt that this whole process is for sure. You ask the average Barbadian, they will tell you it's a show. How can an entity issue an interim rate and the substantive rate hearing isn't completed as yet? So I think we need to educate Barbadians a little more, and we need to prepare for a fight. The words was used here tonight, but the average Barbadian don't know that this is a fight, have not perceived this as a fight. So if it's a fight, please let them know. Because I didn't give my background really, but I know Trevor Brown knows me and knows my background. And I'm telling you, members here, the average Barbadians don't perceive that this is a fight. They don't perceive that this is a battle that will be won in short order. if we, as educators, as members here, as interveners, understand and know there's a fight, we have to bring the average Barbarians on board. I thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Henry. And Mr. Brown?
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna wrap up with this, but
Yeah, we've actually got less than 5 minutes left right
I
now.
understand that. So for balance though, in response to Mr. Hallett, in all fairness, I would want to suggest that the bias that I refer to, and I think that Tricia refers to, is not malicious malice bias. It is more a historical bias. In other words, we have come into a situation where in the past, these large operations, you have to understand the resources that go behind the company's case to make their case for a rate increase, and the resources available to the FTC in terms of their full staff and their full time and their level of training to actually try to moderate what the company wants. So what they are accustomed to is a battle between Light and Power and the mayor and their resources and the FTC with their resources. Now, the truth is, the key stakeholder is actually the ordinary customer. And this stakeholder has been ignored largely in the past. As Anderson suggested just now, it has been a token representation. So that's why people like Wendell, for example, McLean, the truth is, this would mean like a little David against these two massive Goliaths. And the kind of bias that I refer to is the kind of dismissive, historical approach that has been given to ordinary Barbadians, ordinary customers in this process. Fortunately for us, it is about to change. And I think the FTC is slowly coming to see that. But in all fairness, I think we have to give them a chance to actually come on board. And the other thing that we need to solve, which we've been discussing at length, and I'm not going to build on that, is that coming on board means being professional in the way that we respond. Even what we're doing now, the fact that we actually have to depend on the expert, we're just lucky to have someone like Tricia on board. That's the honest truth. When they get into the really technical areas, and if you see the level of pressure that she absorbed, could you imagine if we were doing this if we didn't have that level of expertise available to us and being able to afford it, we are not in a position to do it. So the whole idea of not only having a fund and having some money there, but having an organized system similar to what the FTC has, whose focus is to represent the ordinary Barbadian industry, but as organized and as professional as the FTC is and as Emira and Light and Power is, so that there is then a fair and reasonable tripartite battle for fairness, transparency, and for the successful layout of what happens in energy in Barbados. That is what is critical. I think we have made an excellent start. I really want to compliment BARP for the way that they've come on board, for the enthusiasm that they bring. I know the cooperative movement, I'm really impressed that the cooperative movement we've actually got together, but largely because we are interested in energy and we want to be involved in it, and we want to make sure that when we become involved, it is something that makes sense. But I'm particularly impressed with BARP's interest representing ordinary citizens. They think it's senior citizens like myself, but you are actually representing all Barbadians. We thank you for that, and it is highly appreciated. And I really thank you all for the opportunity to participate here tonight.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. And Stephanie, we're going to come to you for a quick comment or question, and then we will wrap things up with BARP President Marilyn Rice-Bowen. Go ahead, Ms. Ward.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, okay. I've been listening to the whole thing since we started. I have, as a BARP member, one or two questions that I don't quite understand, where I heard you all say something about starting a fund. So in my mind, I'm wondering, what is the fund for? Why would the BARP members have to start a fund when they are trying to oppose the Barbados Light and Power of the increase of their rates? I mean, why are they trying to increase their rates when they are $1 billion business to make the poor Barbadians suffer further? That's something I don't quite understand. Maybe you can explain it to me, but I don't see why we as the BARP members should start a fund. A fund for what? What is the fund going to help us to achieve?
All right, thank you, Ms. Ward. And it'll be fitting now for me to hand over to BARP President Marilyn Rice-Bowen if you choose to respond to Ms. Ward or simply offer us your final words for this evening's proceedings. Ms. Rice-Bowen?
Thank you very much, Belle. And first I would want to respond to Ms. Ward. And Ms. Ward, thank you so much for your interest. What I would say to you is that we recognize that it is beyond the financial scope. It's beyond the financial scope of BARP to fight in the law courts. You will recognize, Ms. Ward, that we were speaking about the fact that BARP wanted to file an injunction, but however, we were concerned about the cost, particularly if we had lost that case, and then we would have been faced with some costs to absorb in the region of 60, maybe. It was shared with us that it could be thousands of dollars. We don't have access to that level of funds. So one member she said that we should start a fund so that you will have a fund with the money set aside that in the event that we wanted to take a matter to court, and we recognize that there are risks when you are going to court, or you might need to cover certain legal costs, that those funds that would be set aside would be used for that reason. But I must say, Ms. Ward, that it is not compulsory. It would be a situation where if you said, look, you know something, I feel that this is a good cause for BARP. I'll put $10, I'll put $20. But sometimes we know that everyone might not be able to contribute, or maybe some persons may say, look, I'm not going to do that. But every one of our members, each and every one of you, you have a role to play. Some people may give money, some people are going to give time. And whenever I speak about time, I always must state here that I lead the voluntary wing of BARP. None of us, none of the directors are paid. And we signed on for that, and we are comfortable with it. We serve BARP with passion and commitment. When we get upstairs, we will reap our rewards. But right now, our commitment is to serve BARP, to serve our members, and to ensure that all seniors in Barbados could lead lives of independence and dignity. And whatever road we have to carve out, whatever we have to do to ensure that that becomes a reality and that our members, our seniors could live comfortably. We've just lowered the age and we've admitted the 40s so that they could start their retirement planning so that when they get down the road, they too can live comfortably. So BARP, we recognize that or the task ahead is, it's not hard, but it calls for commitment. And I could say without fear of contradiction that the members of the board of BARP are indeed committed. And we have an excellent management team as well. And you members, you too have a role, because without you, then we wouldn't have a reason to exist. So I want to place on record all gratitude to the interveners for their time and passion, because it goes beyond time. It is also about passion. And I sat next to Trisha today, and she was saying to me, I promised my daughter a milkshake. I think it was some kind of milkshake that I know I can't drink anyhow. And you know, when I looked at her, I saw a fierce woman fighting for us, all Barbadians. And then there was this side of her personality where she's saying, I must take home a milkshake. So I want you to understand, members of the pub, members here of BARP, and our friends and members, that we are all committed to this case, to this cause. And I want to again encourage you to get involved. Maybe you might write letters, maybe you might call the calling programs, maybe you just have a little chat in your groups, but we need you to get involved because this matter will affect each and every one of you. So tonight I close by again expressing profound gratitude. And again, I'm not good at begging. My whole life I was in sales. So in sales, we don't beg, But tonight I am going to assume the role of a beggar. I'm begging you, please, come on board. Help us fill the gallery and let us get on with the task at hand. We know it's not easy. We know the road will be rough. But if you are standing with us, your presence could make a difference. Good evening, everyone. Stay safe. COVID is still out there. Stay safe. Look out for your seniors. Give them a call and remind them as you speak with them that we are all fighting this cause on their behalf. And I'm receiving a message as I end, and the hearing starts at 9. It finishes at 4. They pause for lunch between 1 and 2. The location is at Accra. Don't try to park at Accra. Go at the site or the parking area opposite Shafet. There's room there for parking. For those persons who have to catch the bus, Accra is on the bus route. Even if you give us an hour, Barbadians, BARP members, I'm begging you, please join this crusade. Good night to all.
Thank you, Madam President. We heard there from Marilyn Rice-Bowen, and I want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much to Trevor Brown for joining us this evening, Chairman of the Coalition of Cooperatives and Concerned Citizens. Also, thank you so much to Mr. Douglas Skeet, Chartered Accountant of Skeet Best and Company, who's a representative of BARP intervening in the FTC hearings. Also to Attorney at Law, Tricia Watson, please guard that voice. We need you to continue advocating and representing and doing your job extremely well. And also to Mr. Ricky Wendt, intervener and BARP representative at the rate hearing. Thank you all so much for being here, for everyone who took the time to join us this evening and make comments and questions and contributed to us having a stronger understanding of the importance of what is happening in our country with this particular rate hearing. Pay attention, and as Ms. Rice-Bowen say, make your presence felt. And I'm wondering if perhaps people didn't realize that as members of the public, they could attend, but no, we have blasted it out there, know. And Accra is along the bus route, so that's easy access as well. So I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. Have a restful night, everybody, and a wonderful and safe Wednesday. I'm Bell Holder, everybody, on behalf of BARP.